arrogance of man is chasing out control, and not the other way around.
Game over, man. Game over.
Please, we can kill it.
Wolfman's got nards.
Nobody trusts anybody now.
Come on, you hate. You want to live forever?
Now what?
But no matter what happens, Godzilla will live.
And we are back. The monster movie Stompdown has returned from our short little vacation. And, of course, you got your host, Sludge, here. My co-host across from me.
It's Mark.
The master from Texas.
Ruben.
And, man, we are stoked to be back. We were talking about before the show how we had this little vacation. We all had all these plans to get some things done that we needed to, especially Sludge here. I had some plans, and for the most part, most of the plans got taken care of. But some of them quite not, because the vacation didn't go quite as well as I had hoped. But for those who haven't seen, because I know most of you keep up with it, my mom, unfortunately, my mom got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer right at the beginning of our break, and so we've been dealing with that. She's doing good. She actually ended up having 2 tumors, and praise the Lord, the second tumor totally disappeared. That was a scary incident for me, I will say, though, because I had to take her out to Vanderbilt University
in Nashville.
And they're like, okay, Mr. Reagan and Miss, and my mom Tammy, what we're doing is we're just going to go in, and it's some kind of little procedure where they're going to go in, they're going to check the size of the main tumor, and then we're going to check the size of the second tumor. Just a couple different things. Should be an hour and a half, dude. At the 2-hour mark, I started getting a little nervous. You know what I mean? Then the 3-hour mark, I started texting everybody, like, dude, I don't know what's going on, man. Like, they said hour and a half, we're 3 hours deep. 5 hours later, 5 hours total, I was freaking out. And then I see the doctor come in the waiting room. And he's like, hey, Mr. Reagan, let's go over here to the consultation room. So he takes me to the consultation room and pulls out this piece of paper, or this printout, and it's all, gloss photos of inside, mom's abdomen, because one of the tumors was on the abdominal wall. The second tumor was, and they were pretty much going in to verify its size because they were going to pronounce her stage 4 because of the second tumor. And he's like, Mr. Reagan, apologize for the time, but here's what happened. I looked 3 different times, and he showed me one of the pictures. He says, right here in this spot is where that tumor was on our previous scan. It's gone. We couldn't find it anywhere. It's like, dude, that's freaking... Yes, what I mean? That's what we want to see. So there's been good news through this, and my mom's doing great. Actually, I was telling the guys, she had her second chemo treatment last week, and she's got 2 more. Then we're going to go back in and check the size of the tumor so they can go in and actually cut it out because they're doing the chemo to try and shrink it. And 2 days afterwards, man, she was mowing her yard and doing all kinds of stuff. So
that's great. That's
a good sign.
So that's kept me a little bit busy because I was working on an album, which I'm still working on. Just did not get as far as I wanted to because mom comes first. But so I've been taking care of her. And then on top of that, I got, of course, became media director at our church. And they like to keep me busy there. I sent the guys a picture earlier of me crawling around underneath the flooring of our balcony. Like Charlie called me a tunnel rat. I was like, dude, that's what they had me do, running cables. Yeah. So, but that's been my break, of course. And we had to prep for RobCon. Which went extremely well. We had an absolute blast at RobCon last weekend. And, of course, you guys will see some of that next week with Stomping Frank's episode because they took down RobCon, man. And they were hit.
I heard. I've heard some things about what their antics up there, man. I heard it was a very wild time.
It was definitely an experience, I will say, having those 2 there with us because we made appearances at RobCon the last time, and then we've done Free Comic Book Day and stuff. But this is the first event we've done with Stompy and Frank there in person, and they were hit, man. They had a great time. Frank probably was the most emotional, I would think, because he went from having fun and laughing to being terrified. All in one day. Like I felt like he was on a roller coaster and felt bad for him. But no, it was really, really good. And of course, next weekend again, guys tune in to their episode. They're super excited. Stompy was actually in here earlier today, working on the episode because I'm not doing it; he's doing it. It's like you watch your episodes and you can edit it all. So, but they're pretty stoked. We can't wait for you guys to see that. So, other than that, how'd your all's little vacation go?
Mine went. My highlight was the RobCon. You know, just
That's
making
a good highlight.
Oh yeah, making
That's a good
pizzas and
highlight.
pizzas and more pizzas.
Yeah.
Other than that, RobCon, I was so looking forward to it.
So it was a good time. Ruben, what about you? How was your time down in Texas?
It was great. Planning RJ's wedding, December 3rd.
That's right.
So it's more like, we could, everything's coming together. You know, we're having to pay for a lot of stuff. So it's all coming together, though. Invitations went out today, I believe.
Oh, nice.
So, so invitations went out today. I think I'm trying to remember. When was our last recorded show?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. It was in June, I think.
Okay, it was June. Okay, so I celebrated 30 years of marriage.
Oh, yeah. All right.
30-year anniversary. 30 years. Taking her to go see Billy Joel for our anniversary. That's what she wanted to go see Billy Joel in Houston at Minute Maid Park. So that's what we're going to do for that's what I did for her anniversary.
Hey, you're going to have to tell Cindy that she's going to have to start listening to Charlie and Nate's horror show now, because she would be so proud of Nate. So Nate came down for the RobCon as well, the convention. Yeah. And it's the first time me and Nate met in person. And so Nate comes walking in the entrance of the convention hall, and I see him. I'm like, dude, so I walk over, to say hi, and we give each other a hug, the first time we meet each other in person. And he's like, Sludge, I got something for you. And he hands me a bag. He brought me a gift. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. And then you all probably saw on social media, open it up, and it's freaking VHS copy of Titanic. I was like, wow.
Collector's edition.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
and what'd you tell him? I already have this one.
I did not. Totally did not.
You didn't.
I was like, what a douche.
I saw that picture on social media. I saw that. I'm like, oh, that's crazy that he did that. That's awesome. Proof, first of all, it's proof that he listens to our show, right? Because
this is true. Yeah, this is true.
That's proof. It's like when you kidnap somebody and have them hold up a newspaper. That was proof that he listens to our show.
Well,
I thought that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool of him. And RJ liked his shirt. He was wearing an Oxygen.
That's right.
Destroyer, and RJ commented on his shirt. They like the same type of music. So and besides that, just all of a sudden we went from no rain to plenty of rain. Drought's over down here in South Texas. We went from 15 inches below normal to about normal.
Well, that's good.
It's been raining nonstop for about 2 weeks or so.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, I mean it's just every day and every day and every day. I was like, man, I need to get out and work on that yard. There's going to be a lion coming out at me if I'm not too careful, because it was getting thick out there. But finally, I could try it out. But I missed recording the shows though a lot. I mean, more than I'm like, man, this is fun. I ended up working on Monster Mash and the Underdogs way ahead of time because
didn't have nothing to do.
Yeah.
And which, man, I want to give a shout out to Ruben, man, because I know, especially during this vacation time with everything I had going on, it was very difficult for me to keep up with something as simple as the Underdogs and Friday Night Fights and things like that. And Ruben, dude, you stepped up to the plate, man, and Ruben's been handling a lot of the Underdogs as well as the Monster Mash. Yeah. And then, of course, reminding me, him and Charlie have been great about reminding me about, Friday Night Fights, like, what day is it? And I'm like, oh, crap, that's right, But so appreciate that.
And my apologies, because this past week I actually released Monster Mash a day ahead of schedule because Labor Day threw me off. And I'm like, you know what? It's only Tuesday. And I already released it.
Yeah, I thought
it
was just because we were excited to get started recording.
Just had to get him back to work.
Yep.
And that's because I was at work. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it early today. And it was about 1:00 local, and I did it. And I didn't realize till I was texting you guys getting ready for the show. I said, only Tuesday, and I already released Monster Mash. I can't believe I did that.
What makes it worse is he goes mashes up, in our message, and I'm like, all right, and I send it over to Instagram. So not only did you miss it, I missed it. So we totally both screwed the pooch.
Yeah. And plus the pick is a favorite of mine. So it was like 600 words, and I'm like, this is too much, and I had to cut it all down.
Thank you,
Instagram. A favorite track. Yeah. So I had to cut it down to just under Instagram's limit.
Hey, it was still good though.
Yeah.
Still good.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we've got a good episode for you guys. Instead of doing a review of one movie, we decided to come back and do something that we're going to start doing a little more regular. Is we're going to do retrospects on series, and we're going to kick this one off with a retrospect of the Showa Godzilla era. So we're going to discuss the films from the beginning, 1954, all the way to Terror of Godzilla in 1975. We promise we will not try to run too long on you, but we want to highlight some of the things, the history of the series in this era particularly, the highs and lows, the memories, the favorite points we liked, that points we hated. Just do a cool little retrospect of the Showa series because, one, we love Godzilla, and I was pretty hyped. RobCon actually saw 3 different Godzilla shirts, and I was like, yes, man, you guys are awesome. And I will say, okay, now one thing that made me mad, because we were laughing about the DropCon.
I was just thinking.
Was we're sitting there at our booth, and we were right across from like Jake the Snake, Roberts, and Amanda Bierce, and so we were right up front. But right at the corner, down a little ways, catty corner from us was a merch vendor, and he had a lot of Godzilla figures.
He did.
Pretty much everything he had, I had. Mine's like 1 or 2, but I didn't. I'm not picking anything up from him. But sitting on he had an Imperial 1985 Godzilla figure with like the 12-inch one, which I have, and I've been looking into getting the second one because I've seen a lot of people lately on like fan pages have been repainting their Imperial,
customizing them,
to look more like Godzilla in the actual movie. So the charcoal, the dark charcoal gray, fixing up the fins, getting rid of the whole red lipstick around the mouth deal, and you can get them on eBay for usually around $35-$40. And so I'm like, you know what? I've been wanting to look at, not in a big rush, but I've been wanting to pick one up to do that because I don't want to paint my original one to get another one to do it. He had one, and he wanted $55 for it. I'm like, I'm not paying that. So where he was at, it was the only figure. The only figure. He had hundreds of figures.
Yes.
But only this one figure he stuck at the very top of his rack above everything else, like sitting on top of the shelf.
And it was above everybody. I mean, every other table, they had everything stacked up and looking good and stuff. Yeah. But what you could see off in the distance
was just that the whole weekend, man. There was that freaking Imperial figure, just perfect line of sight. Couldn't see anything else of his, just that thing. I'm like, dude, you're just taunting me, man. Like
it was good.
I can't believe those Imperials. I mean, I used to get them at the flea market. Imperials. RJ's got a brown one, a black one, a green one. He's got like 3 or 4 different ones.
Oh, see now the brown and black one, like those ones aren't the Imperials. Those are the knockoff ones. The Imperials were the actual authorized ones.
I don't know. They say Imperial on the foot.
Lies. They're lies.
All lies. How could they do such a thing?
I didn't care. I just bought them.
Oh, I would too. Yeah. I've got the blue one. I'm looking for the brown one because they're called those are also called the shark fin Godzillas, and but I've got the blue one. I want to find the brown one. My buddy Dustin, my guitar player for my band, he's got the black and red one. I didn't even know it existed, and it looks freaking sweet. I wonder, is that one
really? Wow.
Yeah, like you got the black for most of the body, then like the silver chest piece actually has a bit of red in it. And it looks gnarly. And I was like, I got to find one of those, but my guitar player won't sell it to me. Whatever. Thought we were friends. It's cool. So anyways.
We are, but not that good.
Yeah. So we've got a cool retrospective review of the Showa era for you, and we are super excited. I'm excited to do that. And, of course, we've got the trivia coming back tonight. Super stoked for this because we're ready, of course, to give you guys more prize.
And that things haven't changed between Tristan and the Sludge.
I have
Charlie.
not seen these questions whatsoever. So all right. So now look,
I bet he's got the answers on his phone.
Now
we only spent the whole weekend together.
I didn't see Charlie much. He was all over the place.
Was it? Didn't y'all get a suite or something?
Yeah, that's what it was. Yes, exactly.
I went home. That's all it was. So. All right, but before we get to that, we've got a couple commercials for you because, of course, we want to support our brothers on the network, and we've got a commercial for Wolfie D and Give Me Back My Horror Movies. So check these out real quick.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Have you ever wondered why older horror movies trigger such nostalgic feelings with us?
Or have you ever wanted a podcast that shines a light on newer horror movies that carry a banner like movies of old, or even puts focus on independent creators?
Or maybe you just want to listen to two guys who are big advocates of werewolves getting normal everyday jobs. Ooh, they're kind of like me.
If you're anything like us, you've probably said, "Give me back my horror."
If you have, then Nate, Charlie, and Nate's insatiable bloodlust have just the podcast for you.
Give me back my horror movies.
And seeing as we have a spooky podcast of our own, we know a thing or two about horror. And I know you hear me when I say these guys keep it spooky.
And after you've gotten your horror fix from Nate and Charlie, come check out our podcast brought to you by Flynn Hendricks Enterprises. Tales from the Haunt and I Know You Hear Me. Available wherever you get your podcast.
Stay spooky.
Now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Okay, so make sure, man, of course, check out all the different shows on our network. But, of course, that was Wolfie D and his show. Then, of course, Charlie and Nate over at Give Me Back My Horror Movies. And let's get this thing started, man. We're talking about Godzilla, arguably the biggest pop culture icon in the world and in history. I mean, he spans...
Agreed.
You know, movies, TV, toys, cartoons, comics, you name it. The dude's been in everything from his own movies to The Simpsons to
music,
Pee Wee Herman to music.
Yeah, music. Everywhere.
All
yep,
over
that's
the place.
right. Pee Wee Herman. Yeah, it's Pee Wee Herman. He even shows up on sitcoms on the shelf.
Yep, like Roseanne, the imperial figure we're talking about. So, I mean, he has a footprint where when you hear the roar or you see the silhouette, you know who you're looking at. And let's jump into the films, man. Let's talk about it. Where it all started, of course, was 1954 with the genius mind of Tomoyuki Tanaka. After, of course, he was wanting to make a motion picture about the horrors of what had happened from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, more particularly about a ship called the Lucky Dragon No. 7. Some sailors who had been radiation poisoned by these nuclear blast experience in the Marshall Islands. So, I mean, Japan was really reeling from the horrors of nuclear war. And you couldn't, at the time, they could not legally just make a straight-up movie about this stuff. And so he had to find some way to put this vision on the screen. And he had just recently seen The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. And on his way back, flying back from seeing that movie and whatever else he was doing, the idea came to him to make Godzilla. You know, this giant monster that was birthed from the atomic bomb attacking Japan. That was his way to get the allegory across and the horrors that Japan had faced. So we got Godzilla. Godzilla came out in 1954 and, of course, was a massive success. I mean, the movie has spawned 36 films now, 32 of them from Toho themselves, and then, of course, unfortunately, there is one from, Sony TriStar, and then 3 from Legendary. And on top of that, of course, we now have, a plethora of animated films and series and yada yada, but we're going to focus on the original 15 films of the Showa era. And that started, of course, in 1954, runs all the way to 1975 with Terror of Godzilla. And the series had a massive success, saw some ups and downs. For the most part, this series had 2 main directors who handled most of the films, and that's Inoshiro Honda, who directed the first film, then majority of the other ones, and then Jun Fukuda, who kind of took rank and did a lot of the later films. Now, of course, you do have Yoshimitsu Banno. He's famously known for having done Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, or Godzilla vs. Hedorah, and then Motoyoshi Oda is who actually directed the first sequel film, Godzilla Raids Again, or here in America when it first came out was called Gigantus the Fire Monster. Aside from those 2, every other one of these films, the other 13 films, were done by Inoshiro Honda or Jun Fukuda, and the beginning of it was mainly Inoshiro. Of course, he did the first one and was part of the Big 4. You've heard us talk about Tomoyuki Tanaka, Inoshiro Honda, Eiji Tsuburaya for special effects, and Akira Ifukube on the music. Those dudes did a lot of the tokusatsu, most, if not all, the tokusatsu films from Toho from the 50s into the 70s because Toho definitely made the giant monster boom. And it had a really good run, man. Let's see if I can spit this off here. Godzilla went from Godzilla in 1954 to Godzilla Raids Again in 1955. Had a little bit of a hiatus, but came back in 1962 with King Kong vs. Godzilla. Awesome, huge collaboration, bringing our beast against their beast, which was really cool and fun. 1964 saw Mothra versus Godzilla. Same year, double feature, we got Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, which, of course, brought Godzilla's main arch nemesis, the Joker to his Batman type deal. 1965, we got Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. 1966, Godzilla went to an island to relax, but the Red Ribbon Army wannabes, little Dragon Ball jab there, took him on an island with a giant lobster and Godzilla vs. Sea Monster. 1967, kept him on an island and brought in somebody who I absolutely despise with Son of Godzilla, bringing us the character of Minya. Again, that was 1967. 1968, we unfortunately get the movie that I probably despise more than... No, sorry. 68 was Destroy All Monsters, which was great, was supposed to be the last Godzilla film. Threw every monster that Toho had into one big film, and it was arguably one of the best of the series. Then it took a major nosedive in 1969 by bringing back that lovable little fat silver meania again in Godzilla's Revenge, or All Monsters Attacks, as it came out in Japan. Skipped a year in 1970 with nothing coming out, and then we jumped back into 1971, which was Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, followed up by Godzilla vs. Gigan in 1972. Then we got Godzilla vs. Megalon in 1973. That was where the series was really kind of going downhill in that time frame there. But then they tried to come back and bring Jun Fukuda in with Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, and ended the series out with Terror of Mechagodzilla in 1975. I think that hits them all, correct?
I believe you did it, sir. You did it.
Boom.
I didn't see him look down one time.
Did you
hit Mothra?
Yeah.
Mothra vs. Godzilla.
Okay.
Yep. Double feature of 1964. All right, so let's run
Oh.
through these, man. I'm going to kind of give some of my highlights of this series. Of course, now again, we talked about this series had not a lot of ups and downs, but one major kind of decline in the late 60s going into the 70s. Now, of course, the series started out with a bang with Godzilla. I mean, we all unanimously agree of it being the best of the best.
Now, if you ask a 10-year-old kid, they would say there was never a decline.
That's very true.
Yeah, that is true.
When I say decline,
for us adults, you say decline, I'm thinking there's a 10-year-old out there that's going to say, I like those.
It's because a 10-year-old doesn't know better when it comes to Godzilla's Revenge being a turd bucket. So when I say decline, I'm talking financially for the studio.
He's the bully that Godzilla was talking about.
Oh, yes.
He told Minya to stand up for himself. And he fights his own battle.
I must be that bubbly butt Gabbera from that movie is what I am.
You're Gabbera. I'll tell you what.
But of course, the series came out with arguably the best film, and we've talked about Godzilla, the original Godzilla, and then the American version, Godzilla King of Monsters. To me, of course, is the staple, and there's so much in that movie for me that has just been lifelong embedded in my system. That will never be changed. I mean, if I was just pick one scene real quick when it comes to that movie that will forever be with me, it's the scene when Godzilla's attacking Tokyo. The second time, the big attack, and you got the mom who's in that alleyway with everything burning around her, and she's holding her kids. And the kids are crying, and she's kind of crying, and she keeps telling them, don't worry, we're going to see Daddy too. You take out the aspect of Godzilla himself, and that moment, to me, was the moment Tomoyuki Tanaka and Inishiro put the horrors of nuclear war on film. I mean, that was like, so that forever haunted me, because I was like, the dad's obviously dead, obviously, and she knows there's no saving her kids, and so when she's just trying to comfort them the best she can, it's okay, we're going to see Dad soon. That just shot, even as a kid, even as a child, I was like, dude, that's scary, and then I was like, further.
Well, that first movie was such a political statement.
Big time.
And to make people aware of the horrors of nuclear war and everything, and they put it in such a, they wrap it up in a monster,
yes, exactly.
and the terrors of what can happen and what it does to civilians.
Right.
And it's just amazing that, that's the way he starts out. That's Godzilla, and And
it's a way to, the horror of an atomic blast is hard to explain because nobody's really, anybody who witnessed it is probably, saw it from afar. Godzilla did a good job of personification isn't the right word, but Godzilla personified the atomic bomb.
Well, it was the full embodiment.
Yes.
The
embodiment. There you go. There's a word I was looking for.
Full embodiment.
And put it in a way that people could understand.
In
other words, they could, had them comprehend it. It's kind of, it's hard for me to put into words, but to me, that movie, they said, we need them to know what we went through. And we're going to do it through this monster.
Yeah, and everybody was top notch in that when it comes to the, whole aspect. I think of the scene on his first attack on Tokyo when he's coming over the train tracks. Okay, when you first see him and you see the people running, like Akira Ifukube's score at that moment, because it starts as soon as the angle switches and you see Godzilla and you just get that awesome score. And it's even to this day, I go back and watch that movie, the special effects are still outstanding. I will gladly say that I think that movie has the best special effects of any 1954 film or 1950s film ever. And it still is better than a lot of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Like, it just holds true. And so everyone was at the top of their game. Inashiro Honda with his directing, Tomiyuki and his producing, Eiji Tsuburaya, outstanding special effects with the way he did that. And then the Ifukube's score was perfect. So, the whole aspect, every aspect of that movie just was the embodiment of what that horror was. So, and that came out with a bang, man. So big of a bang that they're like, dude, we got to do a sequel. Because there was never originally a plan for a sequel.
Right.
Yeah.
So they kind of threw one together pretty quick. And that came out with Godzilla Raids Again in 1955. Inashiro did not come back to direct that one, which I do think hurt that. But Motoyoshi Oda did a really good job. There was moments of it with that movie for me. Of course, that was the first time, aside from the Kong and T-Rex battle in King Kong, this is the first time we've ever got two giant monsters going head to head like this. That whole formula was born. The film may not be the strongest of the series, but it created the most pivotal piece to the series. You know what I mean? With Godzilla, and of course bringing in creating Anguirus, who is Godzilla's right hand man type deal. But one of the things I think it benefited from, and then I'll let you guys run it because we don't want to go too long on each film. Was a lot of the camera, the cinematography was so much more fast paced, especially during the fight sequences. You didn't have as much of the slow lumbering beast of the terrifying part of Godzilla. You got that frenetic and super fast paced, violent fight between Godzilla and Anguirus that I thought was great. So that was a big change of pace for me. That was a highlight for that film. What about you guys?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to go in a little different direction. To me, Godzilla wasn't the first monster movie I ever saw, but it's certainly the most memorable. And to me, that Godzilla franchise changed everything for me as a kid. Right? So you were talking about Godzilla Raids Again. Well, I didn't see Godzilla Raids Again until I was an adult because it just wasn't available in the United States. I just didn't see it. But now looking at all of them and now I'm able to, we have so much access now that we didn't have when I was a kid, because if I wanted to watch a movie, it just had to be on TV. If it wasn't, I wasn't watching it,
Right.
The VCR wasn't around and we didn't have nothing like that yet. It wasn't until the 80s that, that we rented a VCR because we sure as heck couldn't afford one. They were $1,000 back then. But to me, Godzilla, just when I see a Godzilla film, I'm 8 years old again, all over again. And I go through, of course, all y'all know, everybody who listens to the show knows that my favorite is Godzilla versus Monster Zero. Is it the strongest? No. But that right there, that movie right there, every time I see it, I remember what kind of childhood I had, how much fun I had, the carefree, no bills, no worries in the world type of deal. And it just, that one sticks out. Godzilla versus the Sea Monster sticks out because they all run together for me as a kid, but I believe Sea Monster was the first one I saw in a theater. First time I saw Godzilla in a theater was Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, I believe. Because I saw Megalon at the theater, I saw Sea Monster, I saw Smog Monster all in the theaters before they kind of started dropping off. So those hold a special place in my heart too, because they just kind of like remind me of going to the theater, paying $1 to go see a movie with my friends, and it was down the street. It was in the Barrio. It wasn't even in in the fancy theater. It was an old theater, and it was great. The Ayers Theater here in Corpus, which I saw one of my other favorite films, King Kong in 1976.
Oh yeah,
I saw that there. Yeah, I saw that in that theater. So, that's my favorites. I just wanted to kind of. I always reflect on the Showa era in general, because Godzilla, the original, you got that, but we got so much more after that.
Oh yeah,
I mean, thanks to Godzilla, I mean, we got to see the Japanese version of King Kong. We got King Ghidorah, Rodan, Mothra. I mean, you had all these monsters. Mecha Godzilla. I'm like, man, the Showa era was just groundbreaking. You didn't have anything like that. Yeah, you didn't have anything like that in the United States. I mean, you had giant monsters. You had the tarantula, which I love. Everybody knows that. But you did not have anything like King Ghidorah or Rodan or Mothra or Mechagodzilla, Smog Monster, even Gabra and, Megalon, those silly, Gigan, I always say Megalon and Gigan are the Beavis and Butthead of the show.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's just so much came out of that film series. And to me, it was all groundbreaking, because just take I'll just take King Ghidorah, my favorite. Of all the adversaries, King Ghidorah is my favorite. Where else were you going to see something like that? Nowhere else. In no other film franchise was there a King Ghidorah, 3-headed, gold
nothing even close
dragon
to
shooting out lightning
till 1994.
It was just. Can you imagine being 8, 9 years old, sitting in front of the TV, and you see something like King Ghidorah? After all you got here in the United States, which isn't bad. All you got in the United States was, giant ants or a giant mantis, or Frankenstein, the wolf, and you got the Universal monsters, which are all great. But man, as an 8-year-old kid, I mean, that was just amazing. It was, to me, first time I saw King Ghidorah, I was blown away. That was it. I was sold on anything that Toho put out. As a matter of fact, to me, in my opinion, start of every Godzilla film with that Toho logo that comes up at the very beginning, Toho scope or whatever it is. To me, it's just as iconic as the beginning of Star Wars with the scrolling story.
Oh yeah, I totally agree.
It's just totally and then what I tell people is, they say, "Oh, you still like Godzilla? You're 55 years old," and I'm like, I'll never outgrow Godzilla. I said, because Godzilla is not only iconic, I said, but it's an escape for me. For any Godzilla film, I can, I'll sit there. I'll even watch Godzilla's Revenge, Son of Godzilla. I'll watch it because it's an escape for me. It's not only, and Godzilla is iconic. Yeah. And it's just the whole franchise in general. And yeah, there was a shift. It went over to the kids, for a little bit. And I don't blame Toho for it as much now as I used to, because I'm like, well, they probably saw a dwindling audience, and they were trying to, recoup some of that audience that they got. People got bored, I guess. I mean, I bet if you had a chart and saw their what they were making,
there was a huge reason why they dropped in the.
But I think definitely, you take up until Ghidorah, Godzilla's evil.
Yeah,
yes.
Then all of a sudden, here this 3-headed monster comes,
hero.
And now he switches to being a hero. Yeah, he's for the people now, and I think that began to change after that how people thought about Godzilla.
Right.
You didn't.
I mean, he went from almost a horror movie to he's a hero, Ultraman. Ultraman.
Oh yeah.
He's something like that. So it's just great. And yeah, some of the, I see it all the time on the internet. Oh, they went, I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to take that Showa era was just life changing. And I think it changed the course of movie history, in my opinion. It just changed it. Yes, you had King Kong. Okay. King Kong to me, the original King Kong, that set a standard that Toho took and just changed the course of history with, because of the imagination Toho had and the risks they took, because they were taking a risk. They could have just said, this is, they could have just said, nope, a gold three-headed dragon. Come on. No, it was embraced. And to this day, Ghidorah is my favorite, and will continue my favorite. Let me just go over my notes, make sure I didn't miss anything, because, one more thing, and you touched on it, Mark, is Godzilla actually took on social issues.
Oh yeah,
during its whole run. An example: smog monster with pollution. And with Tristan's favorites, it took on. It was made for kids, so it was about bullying and how to handle a bully and things like that. So even back then, they did it. They did it in a way that's different than today. Today, it's almost forced down your throat to the point that it's irritating. Back then, it was done naturally. It wasn't forced. It wasn't, and it didn't seem forced. They did it the right way, and I miss that. I miss that a lot from a lot of these. Now these movies, they try. They want to put a message, but they kind of force feed it to you in a way that's not naturally in the movie. I've seen some that are, but a lot of them aren't, and I think Showa excelled in that. The Showa era excelled at that when it was trying to. In the when it got into the 70s, especially Smog Monster is the one that comes to mind, because that one was very overt.
Yeah, I went to the theater and saw it too. It was on the big screen was good, very good.
But I watch it, and it's going to sound weird and maybe controversial. I don't feel like I'm being preached at. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
When I watch the Smog Monster, I don't feel like somebody's pointing a finger at me and telling me, "You see what you did, Ruben?"
Right.
It's like, hey, this is a problem. You should care a little bit more, or something like that, which was fine. Of course, I was a kid when I watched the Smog Monster, and it's not like, I went out and threw garbage in the street anyway, but it put that in your head, like, hey, maybe we should be a little bit more careful what we do, how we do it. So to me, the Showa era, and my favorites are, of course, the appearance of King Ghidorah. As soon as he appeared, that's my highlight. Another one that sticks out of mind is Godzilla's first appearance in Mothra when he comes out of the ground.
Oh yeah,
Godzilla versus
that's one of the best images
ever. That sticks to my mind. And another one that always sticks out is, and it's not actually Godzilla, it's Mechagodzilla when he gets nicked, and you see that piece of shiny chrome underneath or whatever, and then he spins around, and all of a sudden you see Mechagodzilla for the first time. I mean, that was just awesome. And that was, that came out in what, 73, 74?
74.
The first 74, right? So I was about 14 years old, and I still loved it. I didn't see that one in the theaters. That one ended up, I finally saw it. And I don't remember how I saw Mechagodzilla for the first time. But it was the first time I saw it, I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever, And so to me, Godzilla was life-changing. It really changed the course of how I felt about movies. So, and that's it. I know I got a little deep, man.
Oh, you did good on that.
Yeah,
and I agree with what you're saying, and I think that as growing up, I'm an adult now, and so I'm watching the news and I'm watching the politics, and I'm not really involved in it as a child, but growing up, it makes you start thinking in ways that maybe you would not normally think, because here's this monster. I think the only thing that was disappointing to me in the Showa series was they tried to throw a little bit of comedy in there, and I think
that's true. I agree with you that
especially late 60s, early 70s films.
Of course they built it back up as you got back up towards the late 70s or mid 70s with Terror Mechagodzilla and in that.
Yeah.
But I think they could have, whether they were searching for whether it be finances or their message, kind of going away from adults and going towards the kids. I think it really hurt the Godzilla character and the franchise. But as we see coming along down the future, that it's actually built itself back up. He was a bad A in 1954.
Yeah.
And here in 2014, 2019, he's back to being a bad A.
Time, for sure.
And so it's went up and down. It's a roller coaster, but I think ultimately they have proved to hit all audiences, all ages, and done a good job with it overall.
Yeah. Well, I think when they did the Mecha Godzilla series, the 2 Mecha Godzillas, they realized that kids wanted a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
They the media wasn't going to do it anymore.
Yeah. It did it for Sludge, but
no, not at all.
For Sludge, media wasn't going to do it. They noticed that kids wanted, and let's just face it, Japan's always done a great job with TV series and now with even Korea and all that, they've done a great job as far as knowing what is going to sell now, and even with the 2 mechas, I think they said, you know what, kids are ready for a little bit more action, and they stuck the corn cob guy in there, and he doesn't even fit in there.
Oh, Godzilla's Gigan.
They stuck the corn cob guy in the Gigan, and I think they saw that the trend of what the kids were looking for was changing. So, and to their credit, they changed with it, and all the better because to me, the two Terror Mecha Godzilla and Mecha Godzilla are high points in that Showa era, as opposed to Godzilla versus Megalon, or things like that, where it looks like it was more kid oriented. And then they said, nope, these kids want Godzilla to bleed, or they want, and they did it, and it came out great.
Yeah,
and bled a lot.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'm trying to get Ruben went deep in there, and we'll give him a hard time.
Sorry about that, man.
Kinda,
when you did your thing, I'm like, oh man, I'm going in a whole different direction.
I was like, wow, it's gonna derailed the entire format I had. So I'm like, we were at 55, but it's up and down. The only down point, because you guys brought up a little bit, but I definitely at least want to get this out. The reason why the series went down was financial struggles, but also because of one major thing, and that was, and you brought up his name, Ultraman. When Ultraman hit the scene in 61, kids went from and adults went from being able to having to pay a ticket price to go see Godzilla and these monsters fight to now all they had to do was turn their TV on and they got it
exactly
every Saturday afternoon.
And that's why I mentioned him. Yes, exactly why I mentioned him.
So I mean, he was the major. I mean, there was other reasons, financial, but of course, he was the major cause of it. Was when he hit the scene. Now they were able to see giant monsters fight a superhero every week on their TV screen.
Yeah,
and
without paying without paying a dime.
Yeah. And so that's Toho had to start making adjustments to try and follow suit. That's when we get, let's go more towards the kids with Son of Godzilla, with Godzilla's Revenge. Let's try and go out with a bang and do something that Ultraman can't do with Destroy All Monsters, to do that. I mean, even to the point to where it was so huge that Toho created their own series to go opposite of, because at the time that Ultraman came out, Aija had left Toho and started Tsuburaya Productions for some internal conflict and deals. And so they had to compete with it. So they came up with Zone Fighter. And that was a short-lived, Ultraman ripoff type. Toho's answer to that. And Godzilla even made appearances on Zone Fighter. Not only Godzilla, so did Gigan, so did Ghidorah. Because that was a big problem that they faced that they couldn't ultimately recoup from. And they tried to, in that bottom swell of the 70s there, from 69 to 73, is when it was that low point financially and success-wise.
Yeah.
Japan side, not American side. Because over here in America, in the early 70s, I mean, every Saturday, matinee had a Godzilla feature.
Yeah,
right.
You had in the theaters or at home, and people were coming to see them in the theaters. I mean, Godzilla vs. Megalon was huge. Godzilla vs. Megalon was one of the first movies a lot of people saw stateside because it was played so much on TV and in theater runs.
Right.
As well as other double billed with War of the Gargantuas or Godzilla vs. Monster or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, they would just run those over and over again. So it had a very big success here because even at that time, then over here stateside, on top of that, we get the Hanna-Barbera cartoon. So Godzilla's booming over here.
Yes,
but he was not booming over there.
Well, I think Toho's turning out one Godzilla movie a year.
Oh, it stands 1 year. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, 1970
and
Ultraman
and what's Ultraman weekly?
Yeah.
And that you can't compete with that.
No, and they tried, and I think definitely with the Mechagodzilla, and of course, I mean, Jun Fukuda came back with Godzilla vs. Gigan, and you can really tell with the majority of the action. I mean, of course, it was darker, it was bloodier. Tanaka was not a big fan of the blood, by any means. Not Tanaka. Aiji wasn't. That was one of the reasons why Aiji had stepped out from doing special effects because he felt like it needed to be more kid oriented. Fukuda and Tanaka was like, no, the kid stuff's not working. We need to come back, with this. And then Fukuda, takes full reins almost with Mechagodzilla and Terra Mechagodzilla, and I think he definitely knocked it out of the park because Mechagodzilla is definitely one of the highlights of the Showa because he is one of his. I mean, you've got arguably Ghidorah is still number one.
But
Mechagodzilla is right
an argument. You can make an argument. I can, I'm not going to argue if somebody says, "Oh no, Mechagodzilla's." I can't argue that. It's a matter of taste.
Yeah, I mean, Mechagodzilla is definitely, when it comes to the monsters that came out of the Showa, in my opinion, the most powerful of the foes. But not the most popular. I mean, Ghidorah is definitely the most popular. We've seen him on film more than any other of the Godzilla monsters. I mean,
it's just his design.
Yeah,
I mean, it just.
Well, I mean, he even hopped over from Godzilla to the Mothra series twice. And so I mean, he's super popular. Came back in the legendary ones, but the Showa brought a lot of iconic characters. That stood the test of time, not just Godzilla himself. I mean, we're talking about Mothra, Ghidorah, Rodan, Anguirus, Mechagodzilla. They were all there. Then, of course, we saw the highlight of King Kong versus Godzilla, seeing those two titans go toe-to-toe, to the point where it's like they had to bring it back. I mean, we just got Godzilla versus Kong, a year ago.
Oh, yeah.
And, we had to bring that massive fight back. Because, I mean, you had, back in, Universal did it first with Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, okay, but and Marvel, the crossing universes, we know Marvel does that now type deal with crossing characters, but nobody hit that peak that King Kong versus Godzilla did. I mean, that's the two biggest pop culture titans of movie history. Nobody hit that.
And they were on the same screen. The first time they were both on the same screen. That was
major talk, and inside the household, brothers and sisters or friends are saying, "No, man, it's King Kong. No, it's Godzilla."
Even when he come back with his new one, me and my mom were talking so much smack to each other.
You had Team Kong or Team Godzilla. I mean, that was out there, and it's always been that way with those two.
Yep. So I mean,
and I always have to remind people that the Showa King Kong was supposed to be the hero. With Godzilla is still the bad guy, and the people just don't understand. I said that's why it was King Kong versus Godzilla,
right?
Versus
it was before that it was supposed to be King Kong versus Frankenstein, and that is what fell through. And then that's like, well, that's Godzilla, and then boom,
that was definitely going to have to, if you really think about Kong versus Frankenstein. I mean, really, how well would that go?
Yeah, I don't think
that wouldn't go good on a Friday night fight.
There's pre-production artwork for it. It looked pretty cool though.
Really.
Yeah. But
were they going to use? I wonder. I hadn't seen production artwork. Were they going to use the Japanese Frankenstein, the kid?
No, because this came before that.
Or they were going to use a Gargantua.
No, neither one.
This came
this came before that. I mean, because God.
I always assumed that when they said Frankenstein, it was going to be.
No, it was. If you'd almost imagine like the storyboards, I mean, it looked like a more of a Colossus type creation against Kong. I mean, almost like if you can imagine like a burnt distorted version of Kong, almost is what the storyboards looked like for Frankenstein, just a little more humanistic. But they look great. I mean, there's a couple, pre-production artworks out there for that would just looked awesome.
Well, I think and just like this new, the Godzilla versus Kong, this new one, Legendary. You had to grow Kong up,
right? And they would do the same thing.
It would have to do with that with Frankenstein, yeah.
Because but see, I don't know how I feel about that, because if that would have happened, we might have not gotten Frankenstein Conquers the World and the Gargantuan.
Oh, that's very possible. Yeah,
that's possible too. Yeah, I mean,
so I don't think I want to give. I don't think I want to give up those two.
No,
those three, I guess all together.
Yeah,
I don't. So I don't know how. I'm glad it didn't work out.
Yeah.
So go on.
But yeah, so I mean, the series just again trying to formulate here. I mean, it started high, went high for a while, especially with Inashiro Honda and Shinichi Serizawa, who did a lot of the writing. In that beginning, those the 50s and 60s, those guys, man, just they had it right and nailed it. And I think the majority of them stepping away in the late 60s. Every movie was just a banger, man. I mean, the first Godzilla Raids Again, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Mothra vs. Godzilla, which was bringing in another two titans because Mothra came out 3 years prior and was a humongous success for Toho.
Mm-hmm.
Having those come together, then the introduction of King Ghidorah and Ghidorah the three-headed monster. Not only that, but then bringing not just Godzilla, but bringing Mothra and Rodan in. Like that was huge. I mean, Invasion of the Astro Monster or Godzilla's Monster Zero, Ruben's favorite. That was just a great movie. And so having those original crew, because it was up to that point. It didn't start kind of backing down until 66 with Godzilla Sea Monster. And of course, that's where you had, Inashiro Honda stepped out for a bit, and Aiji's he's still there, but he's starting to pull some reins back. Afukabe's not doing as much as they start to roll out, so to speak, I guess, in the 60s.
Yeah,
is when things kind of definitely changed.
And they started using stock footage. And
and while Sea Monster was still great, a really fun film, it just didn't hit the tier that those first 5 films did. You know what I mean? But then of course you all know my opinion on Son of Godzilla definitely did not. But then they tried to recapture that with Destroy All Monsters, and of course they brought in Shiro Honda back. They brought the big four came back together again, and that's why you have, I think, is the biggest success of the latter part of the Showa with that film. Plus it doesn't help that you got every monster in there.
You can see that draw. I mean all those monsters.
Oh yeah,
I can just see that draw. I'm like, hey, this is like the Avengers.
Right.
It's like the Avengers.
It was the first Avengers
Justice League for you DC fans.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they did a great job. And then of course, everyone kind of leaves again, and then we get Godzilla's the Smog Monster. We had Godzilla's Revenge next, which was that was just a hop, skip, and a jump away from a Gamera film at the time, in my opinion. As far as for the kids. But then Godzilla's Smog Monster. Yeah, we talked about the politicalness or awareness type things of the film. Yoshimitsu Banno severely made pollution a huge thing. I mean, to the point where Tanaka was very upset with him and told him he would never work on a Godzilla film again.
Wow.
Tanaka was in the hospital at the time of that film being done, and so he wasn't there, and he didn't see it till it was all done, and he was furious about it. And Banno did not work on another Godzilla film, and actually he
so he thought it was too forced.
Yeah,
where I didn't think. Yeah, he thought it was
too forced, and took Godzilla in the direction he didn't want it to go. And banned him from it, and I mean to the point where he never worked on a Godzilla film again until because he tried to bring that back. He tried in the early 2000s to do a 3D Godzilla film, bringing Hedorah back. If you guys might remember, if not, you need to check it out because it's pretty cool. You can at least find some of the story stuff about it. But that never came through. But around that time, Legendary Pictures picked up Godzilla, and they brought Yoshimitsu as an executive producer on the first Godzilla 2014, so I mean that was his return, and I don't think it would have happened honestly if Tanaka was still alive. We lost Tanaka in 96, and but even from 1971 to 1996, Tanaka was like, "You'll never touch a Godzilla film again," and he never did. But even as drastic as that was, Smog Monster left a staple for so many people. And then of course kind of bottomed out for as far as Japan side with God vs. Megalon. I mean, that literally was a contest that people could enter to create a hero that was going to be an answer to Ultraman, Toho's answer, and so you got to draw your own hero or create your own character and submit it, and Jet Jaguar won, and it was supposed to just be straight up Jet Jaguar's Megalon. There was no Godzilla, there was no Gigan, but they're like, man, as they were struggling enough as it was, facing against Ultraman, they're like, and this is not going to be enough, so that's what they decided, let's bring Godzilla and Gigan into the mix, because Gigan did really well in God vs. Gigan, and seemed to be pretty well liked. But then that just kind of bottomed. Still didn't go where one. Now over here, it's called Classic. You know what I mean? It just it hit different.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Big time. And but then went up with the Mechagodzilla films. I mean? So it saw its ups and downs, but you were right. I mean, it did things no other movie studio did. Yeah. It created a phenomenon, spawned how many different other companies worldwide tried to capture in on it. You got it was...
Man, you got Gamera.
Daiei at the time, or Katakawa Pictures now, did the Gamera series, which was the most successful, Godzilla fallout or rip-off or whatever you want to call it, series for sure, because, I mean, he's next.
I wouldn't call it a knockoff. I just call it an offshoot.
An offshoot.
A tributary. Tributary off of the Godzilla River.
Trying to capture on that the capitalism of Godzilla there. Gamera
definitely
I'm
all
was
for
successful.
it. I'm all for it.
Big time.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
We got that. We got, Toei, the people who are behind like Dragon Ball, they did Monster Free from Prehistoric Planet. You got Yongary, Gorgo. There's just so many that came out because Godzilla was so huge. Everybody wanted to do one at that point. Even Reptilicus and there's tons of them. So I mean, if it wasn't for Godzilla, we wouldn't have the massive kaiju genre that's just known worldwide to most people. Yeah. And I think that was strong today.
That is the seed. I think the Godzilla series, Godzilla 54 was the seed that sprouted all of that.
Yep. And the Showa era was just a huge boom. And it would be another decade before we got to the next series, which was the Heisei series, which we'll do a retrospective of coming up in a few months. That while special effects and stuff was just superior, it did not manage to capture the magic that the Showa had at the time.
And I still think that has to do with our age. I've always argued this. You guys know that it depends on, like, the Heisei didn't hit with us because we were already adults when they came out.
Well, except for the first one. For me, the first one.
I knew that had to come up.
That's true.
Yeah, 84, man. 84.
So it was 84. I thought didn't we agree that's technically a Showa?
Well, so technically 84 as far as the reign, because
I wouldn't call it that, but it's not the same series. I understand.
Yeah. For those who don't know, the reason why it's called the Showa era deals with the political reign at the time in Japan.
Yeah.
And like right now we're in the Reiwa. Era over there. So technically, yes, it did not change till 1985.
But
and
that's when Godzilla came over here.
Yeah, and so but we do put 84. Even Toho. And
it does it does because it's in that same timeline.
Yeah,
and really, you're talking about a timeline. So but that's your favorite Godzilla film, right? That's what you rank number one is Godzilla. 84.
I mean that's.
Yeah, or 85. I don't know which one. 85 is what you
85,
call
85,
yeah.
85.
Godzilla 85.
I mean, I do put them together.
I still think that it's still thinking. That's why I always argue. It depends because if you grew up in the Showa era, you love those. RJ grew up in he was more exposed. Well, he was exposed to everything thanks to me. So it's not a judge. I can't judge you. I can't use him as a barometer on this one. But I really think like there's so many kids out there that just love the Heisei series because that is where they grew up.
And I grew up in that series, but
and you did,
I grew up with the Showa series. I mean, that's what I watched.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, Mark.
Well, I think
you were exposed to the whole thing, kind of like RJ was. RJ saw Megalon before he saw Godzilla 85.
Yeah, and you watched 1985, Godzilla 1985 or 84, however you want to call it. But you're the type of person that's like, okay, I got to have more, and I want everything this has. And so then you started dissecting everything. And,
because I had seen after 85, I don't know, Mark, what do you think? I mean, probably most of the, if not all of the Showa before I saw any other Heisei film. Maybe sans Biollante. I don't know if we'd found that yet on the HBO video, but I mean, I'd almost possibly say I'd watched the entire Showa.
Yeah. And I didn't even know anything existed after Godzilla 85. And I know I've mentioned it on other shows until the one that we shall not mention got released in the United States, and then all of a sudden,
dumpster,
all of a sudden, all this merchandise was available in the United States.
Merchandise.
And that's when I saw. Yeah, and that's when I saw. I'm like, like I think I told you guys, I've said it. I got all those on QVC. They sold us the whole set.
Yeah,
actually, it was just two of them. It was Ghidorah and Mothra, but I'm like, they exist. There's something after, there's something after Godzilla 85.
Yeah.
And that's when I started saying, I gotta have them. I gotta have them, and, and I even remember getting Biollante, and then Space Godzilla for some reason didn't get released in the United States. It was like the last one. It wasn't released in order. Destroyer was, but no Space Godzilla. And I just remember hunting for it.
Space Godzilla deserves to be put out last. So
yeah. So,
but so Showa era, I mean, definitely it started so much, and it's super. It's amazing, and even the little downfalls some people might see, other people love. Godzilla's Revenge. Me and Ruben differ drastically on that. But there's other movies too that it's opposite for other ones. The ones that I might love that someone else might not like. Everyone has their highlights, and it's a phenomenal series, and we always keep going back to it. Because it's just as good as it is. So. All right, well, it is, and it's just back to Mania. I mean, I got to see, we got back to him. Because I want to iterate. He goes, we differ because I got to see RJ sit in front of the TV and watch that, so I got to see the little 4-year-old, 5-year-old enjoy that. Well, even though now he's at the same thinking that we are, like it's silly, but I tell you what, better that than Teletubbies.
Oh yeah,
that's true. That's true. But, I mean, but look, I mean, I didn't want to let this cat out of the bag, but Mark can attest to it.
Oh,
but,
here it comes.
It was me as a child. I'm actually the person who created the WTF because that's when Mania hit the screen. I was probably 6-7 years old, looking at Mark going, and then just drop it on him out of nowhere, and he's like, "What?
What?" I'm sorry it took you guys in a different direction that you guys didn't want to go on this thing. But I could have. I texted you. I'm like, well, this is where I'm going with it. So I'm sorry.
I think it was good. It was good, and I think we kind of spelled it out there. Really
it worked. So, all right, well, guys, that's our little retrospective of the Showa era. When after you hear the episode, get on the socials, get on the groups, let us know what you think of the Showa era as a whole, your favorites, your ups, your downs. But until then, it's trivia time. It's time to test your might.
Test your might. Test your might. Test your might. Test your might. Test your might.
All right, so this one should be fun because I told Charlie we got 15 films you can go from 54 to 75, so who knows what questions he might ask. But before we get to those, real quick, Ruben, you were the last loser of the Test Your Might, and you had to watch Nazula the Rat Monster. Please tell us how much you enjoyed that film.
Well, let's just put it this way. I went and pretty much just banged my head against the door after watching this because I wanted to forget. I was hoping to get short-term amnesia because that movie, I'm like, what the heck? Why? Why does he do things like this to me? It's just a trivia contest.
There's no sense of torture, yeah?
So I'm watching it, and I laughed more than anything else during this movie because there was a scene that really stuck out to me. It's okay. The two guys are going to go battle this giant This guy, it's a rat that I think he lifts weights and does steroids. That's what it looks like to me.
If you put a rat head on Arnold Schwarzenegger, this is it.
And then I'm like, this guy is ripped and he stands on 2 legs, and he's actually fighting these guys. Like, but there's a scene where one of the guys has a knife, and the knife he goes to stab him, and he goes back. You can see it's a rubber knife because it's flopping.
I know which one you're talking about. I know exactly what scene you're talking about.
It's a rubber knife. You can't even use a real knife. It's, God dang it. I'll tell you what. I'm like, what the heck am I the WTF right there.
That's where it comes out. Yeah, dude. That one took me a while to find. Like, it had been on my radar. It was actually an independent monster film from like 2002 or something.
2002. Yeah, it's 2002.
And it took me a while to find a copy because, the only place I could find it was like Amazon, but it was always unavailable. And then I finally found a used copy, paid probably more than I should have for it. But, no, I definitely paid more than I should have for it. But I saw it and I'm like, dude, if anything, this is test your mind material right here. So it was pretty rough. So I'm glad you got to experience that with me. It's pretty rough. So, all right, let's run into it, man. Let's open these questions up and see what Charlie has for us today. How did he send this to me? Okay, what is going on?
Here we go.
Yeah, always, vacation didn't change anything.
I got a new phone, man. It's being
blame
weird.
it on the phone.
Okay, all right.
Here we go.
Number 1. Which Godzilla movie aired on American network TV in 1977 and was hosted by an American comedian wearing a Godzilla costume? Was it A, Godzilla vs. Gigan, B, Godzilla vs. Megalon, or C, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla?
Okay.
Oh, man. That's a tough one.
I have no idea.
I have one idea. It's barely an idea.
I actually know the answer to this next one. Who was the comedian from number 2? Sorry, number 2. Who was the comedian from question 1 that wore the Godzilla costume? A, John Candy, B, Dan Aykroyd, or C, John Belushi? I know the answer to that one.
Like one more time.
So, who was the comedian from question 1 that wore the Godzilla costume? Was it John Candy, A, B, Dan Aykroyd, or C, John Belushi?
Okay.
I just can't remember which movie it was. I know it's one of the two movies on there. So, all right, number 3. Destroy All Monsters was originally intended to be the final Godzilla movie, and I hope I didn't give this one away, and was set further in the future, unlike previous entries. What year was the movie set in? A, 1999, B, 1997, or C, 1995? Well, that's an easy one, Charlie.
That's
I thought Charlie was digging deep there.
What was A? What was A? Say it again.
A, 1999, B, 1997, or C, 1995?
All right, I got it.
All right, now let's see if I can open this without it doing 500. Okay, there we go. Okay. Number 1, which Godzilla movie aired on an American TV network in 1977 and was hosted by an American comedian wearing a Godzilla costume? Was it A, Godzilla vs. Gigan, B, Godzilla vs. Megalon, or C, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla?
I went with B.
The answer is B, Godzilla vs. Megalon.
Yes, all right. It's the only one that made sense.
Yeah.
Number 2, who was the comedian from question 1 that wore the Godzilla costume? A, John Candy, B, Dan Aykroyd, or C, John Belushi? The answer is C, John Belushi.
Oh, hit it again.
Yes.
Yep, got that one. No,
all right.
Oh, crap.
You get that one too?
Well, yeah.
Okay. Oh, no.
I've actually seen that. Have you guys seen that?
He knew that one, yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, I never seen it, but that too, I remember.
Well, obviously, I didn't see it happen live on air.
Well, I thought, no way with John Candy. Could have been Aykroyd, but
yeah, no, it was Belushi.
That was an Aykroyd comedy. That wasn't, that wasn't.
So, no, I did not see it like when it aired in '77. I wasn't alive then, but I have seen. I've seen
the clip.
Yeah, I've seen the clip, which is pretty cool. Number 3, Destroy All Monsters was originally intended to be the final Godzilla movie and was set further in the future, unlike previous entries. What year was the movie set in? A, 1999, B, 1997, or C, 1995?
Not a clue.
A, 1999.
Boom.
3 for 3.
I'm watching the movie.
Oh, Mark lost
I remember
it.
that 1999, like You know,
it's in the intro sequence. They talk about it.
Yeah,
you know, they give the timeline right there at the very beginning of the movie, man.
I missed
1999, and
All right, so Mark,
you two get to choose what to do to me.
Well, Ruben, if you don't have a movie, I've got a turd basket of a film.
Oh no.
Oh well.
No, let's go with Ruben. I like Ruben. Let Ruben pick.
You want me?
Because he had, Kiss, Phantom of the Park. I loved
That's
it.
true. Yeah, Ruben picked some good ones, man.
I loved it.
Let's see here. Let me see if I can find my list here in my little notebook. Because I had a list here, but if I can't find it in the next 5 seconds, it's all yours. It's all yours.
Mark's slow counting here. I think he's trying to hold out for Ruben because he don't want me to pick this one.
Come on, Ruben.
Because I put one on the other day. I was like, it's been a minute, and this is on my list. I'm going to have to check it out. And I made it all of about 8 minutes into the film, and I was like, no, I'm done.
Ruben.
I cannot find it.
All right, Mark, you have got a great giant monster movie to watch from Full Moon Rising Pictures that came out in like the mid-'90s called Zarkor the Invader.
Zarkor the Invader.
Yep.
Thanks, Ruben.
It is on.
I always have your back, Ruben.
So
I know, and I have a list. It's somewhere in this notebook, but it's so long since we've done the show.
Oh man. So all right. Zarkor the Invader.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, that's so wrong.
Oh man, I'm sorry, Mark.
Yeah,
I found. I mean, it was like as soon as he said it, I'm like, oh, here it is.
Found the list.
Funky and I'm sorry, Mark.
It's a shame. I can't wait to hear how he feels about this movie. So,
oh man.
All right, guys, thank you all so much. We are so glad to be back with you guys, and of course, keep up with us on the social sites. We've got Underdogs, Monster Mash Wednesdays, and Friday Night Fights going all week, every week, and we love doing those with you guys. We've got a lot of things coming up. Of course, next weekend we've got Stomping Frank's Take RobCon episode, so you do not want to miss that.
Awesome.
Wait.
Oh,
I cannot
man.
wait to see that.
It is awesome, and if only we could show you some of the pictures that were taken that were put in our Monster Movie chat that we will not reveal publicly. This was one for the record books. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that episode.
There was privacy invaded.
Yes.
Poor
There
Nate.
was privacy invaded.
Yeah. So next week we've got Stomping Frank Take RobCon, and then the week following, man, we are hitting another Yacha film. We all got pretty pumped with Prey that just came out. We're like, dude, it's time to do the next Predator film. So we are doing Predator 2, and not only will the three of us be here, we've got two very special guests coming back for that one. We've got Charlie and Nate from Give Me Back My Horror Movies and Action Movies coming to join us for that one. So that should be interesting. I do foresee me yelling at Nate a lot, I think, because it's Predator 2, but we'll find out. Because if I'm not mistaken, Nate's like the pro Adrian Brody.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, and I like doing that.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
I think so. I remember him talking kind of highly of Predators, but we'll find out. Nate, you let me know if I'm wrong.
Oh man!
But so we got that, and then of course next month we've got Halloween coming, and man, we have so many cool things in store for you. So we have got, of course, a whole new set of brand new second series Monster Movie Stompdown trading cards coming out for you digitally, and of course we will be getting those made physical copies as well, like we did the first series to do for our prize pack giveaways. We will have, of course, not this month just because of things that are going on. We will be returning the retro news segment for the monthly giveaways so that you guys get your prize packs back. That's coming back next month. And then we've got a 10-day build-up for the Halloween episode. So we are going to go through and give you 10 monster movies that we love as we count down to our Halloween one. And like I said, these won't be... it'll be really cool. So instead of doing like 2 different episodes, we're going to do little mini episodes for you 10 days prior to Halloween, counting down our personal favorite monster movies for this season, leading up to a very special. We're not going to say anything about it other than it's very special. It's going to be changed, like drastically changing for the show. Our Halloween special, you will definitely not want to miss. It's going to be awesome. So, and not only that, we have one more thing for you for Halloween.
Oh man, Mark. I don't know, but the next
I don't know. What is this?
Well, we talked about it earlier.
What are you talking about?
So, this is not going to be on the show. Well, we'll be on the show, but it's going to be a big, huge thing for Friday Night Fights for the month of October for Halloween. we are going to do bracket-style tournament.
Here we
so
go.
we are going to decide who is the ultimate monster of monsters for Halloween as we pit some of the biggest and most legendary monsters in movie history against each other. So every Friday night, you're going to see a new bracket of monsters, and we're going to decide who comes out on top. And we want to let you guys know. We will talk about it as we break down Halloween on the show, who we think is going to win, who we'll give you our opinions ourselves on the show.
Who's going to fade away and who's going to move on.
But then you got to interact with us on Friday because it's you who's going to decide who comes out as the top dog monster for Halloween this year.
You know, what's going to be very important here is the ranking of the monsters for that first bracket.
Oh, yeah.
So we gotta make sure that not, that somebody's favorite monsters aren't ranked against some weak monster. So
no, we will make them fair. Like I said, we've kind of gone with the Friday Night Fights. Similar monsters against similar monsters. Now we may not do that exactly, but we will keep it very similar. Maybe not.
Yeah, but you made it so similar that somebody can comment very generally on those fights.
Yeah, like Charlie. Charlie.
Yeah.
Well, I might just go ahead and ban Charlie from the tournament.
That's the idea right there.
So
Charlie can't do it.
But we're pretty stoked, guys. Halloween's going to be huge. Trust us, this Halloween special is going to be awesome, and it's going to change the course of the show from here on out. So
can't wait.
It's going to be great. So again, thank you all so much. We are so glad to be back with you. We will see you guys on all the socials. Make sure to check us out on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We love you guys so much. This is Sludge.
And Mark.
You got Ruben in Texas.
Y'all have a good night.
Good night.
Come on, you guys. You want to live forever?
Now what?
But no matter what happens, Godzilla will
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.